For this video, we are going to be discussing forms of linear equations. So there are three different forms of linear equations, three different ways to write a linear equation that we're going to be discussing. The first one we've talked about a lot before, and that is the slope-intercept form, which looks like y equals mx plus b. Second form we'll talk about is the point-slope form, which looks like this: y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And this should really not look like that. It should look like this. And finally, we'll be discussing the standard form, which looks like ax plus by equals c. What we're going to talk about is that any equation that I can write in one of these forms, I can also write in the other two. So let's first talk about slope-intercept. Slope-intercept we've seen a lot before. All right, and it is the form y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So if I gave you an equation that looked like y equals 2x plus 7, you know that your slope is 2 and your y-intercept is at 0, 7. This is the most commonly used form of a line that we're going to be working with. And in fact, we're going to be working on changing the other two forms of a line into slope-intercept form. Second form of line we're going to be working with is what's called point-slope form. Point-slope form looks like this: y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Now we know that the m is always going to be the slope, and this point, x1, y1, is just some point on the line. So for example, I told you the slope of a line was 2/3, and it contained the point 2, 6. The equation would look like y minus my y1, which is 6, equals my slope, 2/3, times x minus my x1, which is 2. All right, so that's how we use point-slope form. And we're going to be discussing this a lot when we talk about writing equations in our next video, because this is a very easy one to use to write equations. And finally, standard form. Standard form looks like this: ax plus by equals c. And a, b, and c all have to be integers. And you've seen this before when we said something like 2x plus 3y equals 18. All right, this is an equation in standard form. A and b are just the coefficients of x and y, and c is just a constant. And these are all integers. So those are our three forms of a line. And once we have one form, we can convert each form into the others. And this works just like solving a literal equation. All right, so let's start with an example. Example 1 says that I want to write this equation right here in slope-intercept and standard form. So it's given to us in point-slope form. So now I want to put it into both slope-intercept and standard. I'm going to start with slope-intercept because that's actually a little easier. So if I look at this, y minus 8 equals negative 2 times x plus 1. Putting it in slope-intercept form is simply solving for y. So my first step is going to be to distribute negative 2 times x and negative 2 times 1. That gives me y minus 8 equals negative 2x minus 2. Now I'm going to add 8 on both sides. And I get y equals negative 2x plus 6. This is in y equals mx plus b form, so this is the answer in slope-intercept form. So you notice all I did is treat this like a literal equation, and I solved for y. Now to turn it into standard form, I actually need to do everything I've done here already. So I'm going to work that out. I put it into slope-intercept form, and now I know that I want it to be in the form of ax plus by equals c, which means that I want to have this 6 by itself on one side, and I want to have x and y together on the other side. Whenever we do standard form, we want our x's and our y to be on the same side. So what am I going to do? Well, I want to move this 2x over to here, so I'm going to add 2x on both sides. And I get 2x plus y equals 6. And this is the equation in standard form. So when I want to turn something into slope-intercept form, I want to get y by itself. When I want to turn something into standard form, I want to get the constant by itself. I want to get x and y on both sides, or on the same side. All right. Example 2 says we want to write in slope-intercept and point-slope form 2x plus 3y equals 18. So it's given to us in standard, and we want to put it into point-slope and slope-intercept. I'm going to start by putting it in slope-intercept form. So I start with 2x plus 3y equals 18. I'm solving for y, so I'm going to subtract 2x on both sides. I get 3y equals negative 2x plus 18. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. And I get y equals negative 2/3 x plus 6. So now I have my equation in slope-intercept form. Now to put it in point-slope form, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it into slope-intercept to start. All right. And now, to put it in point-slope, I need the slope, which I have, and a point, which I have. All right. I know that point-slope form looks like y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Well, I know my m is negative 2/3, so now I just need to figure out what's my y1 and my x1. Well, I know my y-intercept is 0, 6, or my y-intercept is 6, so I have the point 0, 6. So now I just take this information here, plug it into this this general form, and I get y, that is my y minus y1 equals m times m minus x minus x1. But I plug these in, and I plug in 6 for y1, so y minus 6. I plug in 0 for x1, and I plug in 2/3 for m. So my point-slope form is y minus 6 equals negative 2/3 times x minus 0. Now I don't have to do anything else. This is the equation in point-slope form. All right, example 3 says I want to write in point-slope form and, I should say standard forms, y equals negative 8x minus 13. So for this one, I'm given it in slope-intercept, and I want to turn it into the other two forms. So to turn it into point-slope, I'm going to just look at my equation, and I'm going to realize that I know my slope is negative 8, and I know that because this is minus 13, I have the point 0, negative 13. All right, so I just take my general form, and I'm going to plug in. What did I do here? I totally messed up. Let's fix this. Let's fix this. I'm just going to plug in my numbers. Fix this here. All right. So once I plug in my numbers, I plug in 0, 13 as my x1 being 0, my y1 being negative 13. My slope is negative 8, so I plug that in. And then I just need to work out here. Minus a negative 13 is the same thing as plus 13. And over here I just leave it the same. So my point-slope form is simply y plus 13 equals negative 8 times x minus 0. I know this looks kind of weird, but we don't have to fix it at all. This is the answer in point-slope form. Now to go to standard form, once again, start out with y equals negative 8x minus 13. And I know that I want to get my constant by itself on one side. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add 8x to both sides of my equation. And I end up with 8x plus y equals negative 13. That's it. That is the answer in standard form. So there you go. Now you've seen how we can turn each one of the forms into the other two. So your try-it problem for tonight is to write the equation in slope-intercept and standard forms for y minus 7 equals 5 times x plus 9.